This is Chris Mahoney of the Chris Mahoney Project, and you are enjoying the sights and sounds of This Is Metal.
And Chris, we'd love to thank you for coming on the show and being our guest today. My co-host Tom, he's out today. He's finishing the recording of his new album. He'll be back in a few weeks. So thanks for coming on the show. And I got to tell you, Chris, until your publicist reached out to me, the great folks at Chipster PR, I'd never heard of you before. So of course, I went and checked out the new album. And I got to tell you, Chris, I'm just really impressed with everything I hear. Of course, the new album is Numbers, just released on Deco. What can you tell us about the new album?
Well, first of all, my relationship with Deco has been amazing, and it's an honor for me to be here with you. And you're very good vibes being sent to Tom for his recording, and hopefully I'll be able to connect with him in the future.
Sure.
Hopefully this won't be the first of our meetings. But as far as the Numbers record goes, the Numbers record was quite a bit different than my two previous records, in that I really wanted to bring the energy of a live band. My two previous records, although I'm quite proud of those in a different way, there's a heavy electronic element to them. And Numbers was more of just a rock trio, just bringing it big, big drums, big guitars, and did a little bit of the spoken word stuff on this record too, which was something I've always been really drawn to.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I believe it's one of the tracks I heard, Ashes, which is a great music video for. I couldn't really tell, is he singing or those vocals? Because it reminded me of stuff that Steve Vai has done on some of his solo albums.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I really dig that because it gives it there's like a little extra element more than just instrumental track, which is cool, like an extra layer.
My cat wants to visit.
That's cool. I'm an animal lover. Yeah. Yeah. I got 3 dogs myself, so believe me, I understand. Rock and roll cat. So
of course, he was sleeping all day until right now.
Of course, yeah. So where exactly are you from, Chris?
The Hudson Valley area of New York, about 70 miles or so out of Manhattan.
So what's the weather like in New York today? Is it really cold?
Freezing.
Wow,
freezing.
wow.
Freezing. But it's January, so I don't really mind
beautiful
so much.
Long Beach, California. We're a little ways from where the wildfires are, thank God. But our hearts and prayers go out to those people. But how old were you, Chris, when you first started playing the guitar? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, I actually started out on drums in the 3rd or 4th grade or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I was always banging on the desk and everything, so they figured they'd give me some drumsticks, and that's how I kind of started my musical journey. And I discovered the guitar like at about 15 or so, maybe 14 or 15, about like that. It's a little bit later than many others, but as soon as I saw a picture of one in a catalog, I was extremely drawn to it. So I was hooked.
What interests me about that, Chris, is the fact that Eddie Van Halen, the great late guitar player himself, the King, he kind of has a similar story, starting out on the drums. And of course, him and his brother Alex, they switched.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Instruments. Now, I was curious. So for quite a number of years, would you say you played the drums, and was it just a matter of you thought this isn't really for me, the guitar's more? What was your thought process?
Well, I just seeing the picture of, I know it's a little unusual maybe, but when I saw a picture of an electric guitar, I was just fascinated with it, and I imagined what it would be, to hold it and make music with it, and that was really what drew me, was just that.
I can understand that, Chris, because I'm a guy that's not really a musician myself, can't really play a lick, but I can kind of relate to what you're saying, because there's just something about the look of any given guitar. It looks cool.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's like, wow, I wish I can't play that like you do, but I wish I could. It's just, even if you ever get a chance to even hold a guitar in your hand, there's something special and unique about it.
Absolutely. And I still as you can see,
yeah,
I still love to just look at them. I like to play with them a lot more than I like to look at them, but I do like to look at them, and every once in a while I find myself seeing that same image, in my.
Yeah, and I was curious, Chris, the other cool thing about playing the drums and other instruments is, I think when you do go in the recording studio, it gives you a better understanding of what the other guys in the bands are doing,
Absolutely. And when I start a recording process, or each one of my songs, very often it starts with that. It starts with like some sort of a drum groove, or at least like the feel of it,
Yeah.
and everything kind of gets built around there. So to your point, yeah, it's great to be able to communicate with drummers on that level, and because many of the guys that I use are kind of like session guys that kind of get me
Yeah.
through.
And coming up, I was curious, like when you were first learning to play the guitar and getting into music, like a lot of people, I imagine you either formed a band or you joined bands. I was curious, like were you ever like in a 4 or 5 piece band where there was a lead singer?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, sure.
And
I've been
and,
in several different bands.
and what was the point in when you decide, okay, you want to do your own thing and you formed a Chris Mahoney project? Because again, I mean that's a very different type of thing, but I dig what you're doing, so that's the next part of the story, you know.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, it really was just by default, like my guitar and I are just on this journey. It's almost like, I start every day thinking, what are we going to do together today?
Yeah.
And it was really, it really wasn't much more lofty than that.
Yeah.
The band I was in we did quite a bit of traveling, and there was lots of dough being thrown at that. And that was a great experience in its own right. I got to see a great deal of the country, and a lot of, I worked with a lot of great producers and stuff. But, after that ended, it just occurred to me that it should just be about writing for the sake of writing and connecting with your instrument for the sake of that.
And I imagine because with the Chris Mahoney project, it is your project and it's your baby, and um, you made the transition where you don't necessarily need a lead singer in the band. It's primarily based around your the music's based around your guitar playing, and
Yeah, I wish I could sing. I'm kind of a frustrated singer, and I approach a lot of my songs that way. I try to play in a way that I unfortunately can't sing. Although that was me singing on Ashes, though.
well, that's cool. Like you said, maybe you're not the next David Lee Roth, but you know what? You use your talents that you have and you make it work, and that's cool. And in fact, after listening to numbers, this is what my response was, Chris. I think to myself, this guy is the next like guitar god. And what I'm talking about is not. I don't want people to think that you're like this great shred. It's a great shred fest of an album's worth of music. But what it is when I was growing up, um, every great band, had the guitar god, had the guy that the guitar hero. And I think that's something that's really been missing from the music scene for years. And what makes this such a great album is not every track on the album sounds exactly the same. I think all the tracks really stand out on their own.
I appreciate that so much. That means a lot to me coming from you, a music fan like yourself. And
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
All right.
sorry,
All
Jason.
right. Again, rock and roll cat. We understand.
Yeah, he's quite the rock and roll cat. He matches all my stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, in fact, so talk a little bit about what's it like making instrumental music. I mean, again, because it reminds me a lot of kind of what you get with like a Steve Vai or a Joe Satriani album, in the
Mhm.
sense that it's about each of the songs. The songs really kind of stand out on their own. It's not like an album full of just showing off how fast you can shred. It's really I get it's about the songwriting, it's about the melody, and it's filled with so many different types of sounds.
I appreciate that very much. Well, to that point, when I write songs, I live that song
Yeah,
until from the beginning to the end, and they're very often born out of some sort of emotional experience, or some word or phrase or something that pops into my mind, or some visual. I'm a very
yeah.
visual person, very visual writer, so very often the songs are kind of born from that. So each tune winds up being very unique and has its own DNA, because I
In fact,
don't
to me,
I don't finish it till I finish it.
and listening to these songs, like a lot of instrumental stuff I've listened to over the years, when you write a song that has lyrics, it's more about telling a story. Maybe you're writing it about, the first time you fell in love with a girl or something like that.
Mhm.
And you tell more of a story, whereas because this is instrumental music, it's more maybe based on an emotion you're going through, or a similar life experience, but it's based more on your emotion than trying to tell a story.
Absolutely, it is for me for sure.
Yeah. And so, how often, like when you go in and record this stuff, is your mood at the time really affect how it comes out? I mean, say you go in and you're having a bad day, does that really affect how this song ends up sounding?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does for sure. Or a good day, or any there, any kind of day in between.
Which, an interesting thing about listening to instrumental music or even creating that, I think there's a little more, you have a little more room to be creative as opposed to having to worry so much if you're writing lyrics. Do these words fit together? Does it sound great? You can just go in there and kind of whatever comes out, you're free to express yourself.
Yeah, and I tend to improvise a great deal of my recordings as well, so it kind of keeps things, quite fresh. Unfortunately, what that does is creates more work for me to like relearn the stuff a few months later to play with my band or whatever. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Even I dig like a little roomier. I mean, that looks so rock and roll.
Thank you.
You're very much about visuals. I get that, and that's pretty cool. Which I got to ask you, as far as the video for like Ashes, talk a little bit about the making of that, because again, to me, that looks like such a professional shot video. Looks like something you would have seen on MTV back in the day.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we tried to certainly tell a big story, and that song was inspired by and started the day that I walked through the cemetery that's actually in the video.
Oh, okay, wow.
I'm fond of walking through cemeteries just because I find them, I find them very peaceful, and reminds us that that life is short here, but nonetheless, that's where the song started, and the story kind of grew from that one day where noticing there was various parts of the cemetery where the stones were broken and disintegrating, couldn't read the names on them, and wow. I was really saddened by that, honestly, that these things that proved that someone was here however many years ago aren't standing anymore. And it wound up being this, growing into this idea that nothing in this life is permanent, some of the greatest loves that we have, and the greatest, the buildings we live in, and the cars we drive, and all of these things, it's all just temporary. And oddly enough, leaving that cemetery that day, there was a salvage yard, and it was, for as far as my eyes could see, it was just automobiles that were probably at one time,
wow.
The latest and greatest vehicles, which were no longer even functioning. They were about that tall because they were all crushed. So,
I mean, even like everybody recently celebrated the holidays, and I don't know about you, Chris, but the older I get, you start to look around, and a lot of the people that were there when you were growing up are no longer there, but yet you still try to remember them,
Yeah.
Another track on here I really loved. Talk about this Spinning World. I just love the guitar riff that throughout that song.
Oh, that's so cool to hear. Because I have to say that I think that might be my favorite.
Okay.
That might be my favorite on the record. Mostly because I'm just
kind of going.
I'm proud of how it came out, frankly. But that song was born out of being pulled in lots of different directions. Where
I get
you kind of have to wear the hat of this and wear the hat of that, and just being trying to dedicate all the time that needs to be dedicated to do your thing well.
So that must be a great feeling. That you kind of like feel like you're struggling with the song, and then it comes out so great.
Yeah. I was really very, very pleased with the way that one comes out.
And I also love the song. Let's see, Believe. That's another kind of just takes you on a musical kind of roller coaster of a ride.
I appreciate that. That's a fun one as well. That was a really fun track.
And let's see. And the numbers, the title one. I mean, that really gets the kind of kicking off, and what a great way to kind of open things up with.
Yeah, that song was a really fun one to record as well because that has a very unique story, at least to
Okay.
me, frankly.
Yeah.
So I'll briefly share. Um, that track is very different than anything that I've ever written before. There's a lot of time signature changes, and that's not really something that I've ever really experimented much with, and pretty much a straight up kind of 4/4 kind of groove guy.
Okay.
But again, like that was a conceptual idea, in that everything is a number,
Wow.
everything, from the serial numbers on the back of my guitars to, you know, tracking numbers to, uh, what's on
Mm.
gravestones, numbers,
Wow.
So that whole idea became rather infatuating for me. So I thought, well, how can I bring numbers? How can I bring that to life musically? And I thought, well, music is numbers. The whole system of harmony and rhythm is numerical, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So I thought, let's bring some crazy time signatures and make them all work together. So that song has 5 or 6 or so different time signatures in it, and it was crazy to record that.
Yeah, I mean, you even think about it, like even when you record a track now these days, even if you download the file onto your computer, it's got a number.
Yes, exactly. Everything. You take a picture with your phone, and the
Yeah,
phone's identifying that with a long number, and just
yeah,
it's just unthinkable how fast it is.
yeah. I don't know how old you were at the time, but I remember back, in the year 2000. It's the millennial. Oh my God, the clock when it strikes 12, all the
Yeah,
all
the
the
computers
computers
are
are
going
going
to
to be
blow up.
messed up.
Yeah,
The world's going to come to an end.
yeah. No, and here we are, still
Yeah,
here.
everything running by numbers. Um, so I seen on your Facebook page. I don't know if you've done the show yet, but you have a show or something coming up with playing with Striper. Have you already played?
Oh, that was in the past, actually.
So what was that like?
It's
That
going to be
because
a
that's
post.
you
Well,
guys
that
are
was
kind of. I can kind of see you doing like with Striper because again they got the rock fans, but it's a little different. So how did that crowd go over for you?
It was quite great, actually. I remember that show well, and it was very, their audience was very receptive to us, and it was a really great show,
And
really
you
great.
never really know because in a case like this, as great of an artist and a guitar player as you are, um, there might be some people that, oh, okay, this is just instrumental music. We can go to the bathroom. We're going to go get our t-shirts or whatever. But that's cool that you find out that you can do shows like that.
Yeah, I've actually done a lot of shows with bands that are, maybe guitar
Point.
driven,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
most of the time, like have vocals and so
yeah.
forth. And I'm always inspired and extremely touched when many will approach and say, normally I don't really like instrumental music, but I really like this, and that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
really, really great thing.
I
So,
mean, the thing to me is I was a fan of that stuff growing up, but I think what you got to do is like kind of be an artist like you, Chris, where every track really kind of stands out on its own, and not everything on the album sounds like it's the same solo.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, man, very
and
much.
I think too, Chris. That's when you're creating instrumental music. But the key is being able to get people to keep their attention span going. And if you can do that, I think you're well on your way, which you are.
I appreciate that
Yeah.
so much. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And so, how often do you play out?
Well, truthfully, it hasn't. That really hasn't been happening in a little bit. So, with my focus on recording and my new relationship with Deco and stuff, that's really taken up most of my.
I gotta say, Deco. I was curious how you hooked up with him because Deco is a great little label. I mean,
They're
they've got
fantastic, man.
everybody from Carmine Appice to the Dictators. Um, they got a great roster of artists.
Yeah, and it's seemingly growing. They're great. Charlie and Bruce and Robin, they've been really, really supportive and really helpful. And uh, I mean, frankly, I think it was kind of a wink from above how I found them. I just turned a record over one day, and I
Yeah,
saw their little logo on the back, and something just kind of whispered to me, like,
yeah, yeah. They're a great little label, and more people are starting to discover Deco. And the thing of it is they got a great roster of artists, like I said, and they really get behind their artists. And even Deco signing somebody like the Chris Mahoney Project. that's I don't think they have another artist like you quite yet, Chris. And so that's what's cool about the label too. They sign different types of artists, and
Yeah.
they really get behind the artist. I think maybe it's because I know some of the people behind the label were musicians themselves, and their career. Yeah.
Right. 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 Yeah, they're very artist centric.
Yeah.
I've in all my communications with them, they're, Charlie even called me one day and we were chatting and he was asking, is it okay if we, is it,
Yeah.
fill in the blank, is it okay if we was so, I was quite, impressed with that. It's really like, it is really a partnership. They want to
And they
make sure.
really do work with their artists, and they do their best to help promote the artists. I mean, they're artist friendly, and the way I really kind of discovered Deco was through working with the folks at Chipster PR, because they work together
Mhm.
too with them, and they've gotten me a lot of great interviews over the years, and that's how we have come to promote some of the Deco artists. So it's one kind of illustrious partnership, if you will. But that's how we get a lot of these interviews, and I really love seeing when a label gets behind their artist.
Yeah, they're great. And I've had little communication with Chipster as well. So he seems like a cool guy
Yeah,
as
and,
well.
and I mean that's got to be a great feeling too for an up and coming artist to, I mean, to be able to say, I don't know what you pay for, but to be able to say that, hey, I got the same publicist as Carmine Appice and Ross the Boss and the Dictators. I mean, that's pretty cool.
It's really cool, man. I'm thankful every day, but I am a lot more thankful of late that my relationship with them just came along at the perfect time, and the
And I know
features
the
have been
album,
perfect.
you're really working the album because it just barely came out a few weeks ago. But so what is the plan? Is to just kind of work this album as much for the rest of the year? Um,
Yeah, I would say that I am. I mean, I'm always writing songs. That's just, you put me in a room with a guitar and,
sure, sure.
I'm going to write. So I am working on what's going to be my next record. It won't be done for a while, I'm sure, but I've
Yeah,
already
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of started. I'm a few songs into that. But when Deco says, "Hey, what else you got?" I want to make sure I have something waiting. So
yeah, yeah. And when you do play out live, like, is it hard coming up with the set list? Like, do you know right away if a song is gonna work live or not?
great question. I tend to just approach it based on whatever the audience is going to be. Like I played with Al Di Meola, and
Oh,
I
okay.
actually opened for Steve Vai
Wow.
once, and I have, like I said, I have 3+ albums worth of material, so there's plenty to pick from, and
Yeah.
I kind of try to gear it towards whoever the audience might be.
That's a good problem to have, Chris, having an abundance of material as opposed to having a shortage of material.
Yeah, yeah. One of these days I'll be able to, hopefully play long enough to get it all in there. We'll see.
And so I guess the last question before I let you go, talk about some of, your guitar heroes growing up, the guys that influenced you to do what you're doing.
That's a great question. It's a difficult one to answer because I feel like it's everything and nothing. But the guitar player that's most inspired me is Steve Stevens from Billy Idol's band.
Oh, I could see that. Okay, wow.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
my favorite guitar
So of
player.
course, Billy Idol's a thing he's known mostly for, but I was curious what you thought of if you heard the album he did with Vince Neil,
Sure,
or
yeah,
what you
yeah,
thought of the Atomic Playboys. Did you get a chance to hear any of that?
absolutely, yeah. Atomic Playboys is a magnificent record. His most recent instrumental record is Memory Crash, and that is alarmingly good. It's just and flamenco a go-go, which is a
Yeah,
flamenco,
sure, sure,
nylon
sure.
string guitar stuff. Fantastic as well.
I'll have to
So
check out the most recent one. I wasn't aware of that, but
yeah,
thanks
it's
for
an amazing
recommending that.
record.
Now,
Amazing.
I just gotta say, Chris, it was a great pleasure chatting with you today. This is going to go up next Tuesday. I will send your publicist a link, and feel free to
Fantastic.
share it and on all your sites. But I'll tell you in closing, Chris, I love the new album. I urge people to go get it. You want to let people know how they can purchase the album?
Sure. Well, they can go to decoentertainment.com, and they have the CD and
Okay.
the vinyl on there as well.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you
And
get vinyl too.
chrismahoney.com as well is my previous records.
Okay, so and in closing, as I was going to say, you are definitely welcome back. I'd love to have you back when Tom's back. He would have loved to have been here today to talk to you, but that's for another day. But I don't know if anybody's told you, Chris. You give a really great interview, and so we really covered a lot today. But we'll have you back definitely.
I hope so. I hope so. I'll look forward to that very much. My best.
Okay, take care, my friend. Bye bye.
You as well. Bye bye.